How did you go about learning to drive in the snow, in the ice, in treacherous conditions that we are sure to find ourselves in on the way to work, on the way to school? How did you learn how to drive in the winter? Good morning. It is the WMAY morning news feed. Now, the sun's out right now. It's cold, a high of 28. So we don't have any snow in the forecast, but I think we had our first bout with some tough conditions on Saturday when there was freezing rain. I didn't go anywhere. Megan didn't go anywhere. We stayed at home, but even just walking out to the garage seemed like it was going to be a dangerous venture because the sidewalks were crazy slick, like dangerously slick. And I did go out into the garage to do some rearranging of some stuff, and I saw cars drive by that were spinning, even trucks just woo, 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 woo. And later on in the day, a listener texted me that they took their daughter to what they thought was going to be a kind of a wide open area to teach her how to drive. And even though there was nobody else in this area, they still got into a minor accident. Everybody's fine, but the vehicle ended up hitting something that was not on the road, like a flower pot of sorts. So very minimal damage, nobody injured, but still one of those things where it's like, how did you go about learning how to drive in winter conditions? So I want to hear from you. 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY. How did you learn how to drive in the snow? Good morning.
Good morning. I learned in high school, and I have a late birthday, so it was December. So it was already the winter months when I went to driver's ed. I had a really cool driver's ed teacher. He would make us drive him first off to like the McDonald's closest and get him a cup of coffee or, biscuit or something. Yeah. And he took us down one day to the Capital City Shopping Center. We went through the drive-thru there at McDonald's, got him his coffee, and, he takes us over to the parking lot there, and has us do some cookies in the snow to get the feel of the car in the snow, put on the brakes, watch you slide, things like that.
Absolutely.
You
need to learn that. You need to learn how,
to control your slide.
Yeah, exactly right. And that was something, at least nobody taught me how to do it. I kind of just did it as somebody who had a 1983 Honda Prelude with the pull e-brake, right?
Yeah.
So I'd kind of, just go around some corners and get a little feel for how you got to turn into the swerve a bit, so that you actually had an instructor walk you through that.
Yeah, see, the thing with us was it was like the change from rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive. It was in the mid-'80s, and so a lot of us had rear-wheel drive cars, so that was a whole different experience than the front-wheel drive cars that were coming in. And but, yeah, he had us do that, so that was my driving experience. And as for my comedians that are dead, I would have to go with Charlie Murphy and Bernie Mac.
Oh,
and
Charlie
of course,
Murphy.
Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
Of course, Richard Pryor.
No, I appreciate that because earlier we also took calls about your favorite dead comedians. And I did get a couple of others that came in a little bit late. But, of course, we had Mitch Hepburn. There was another guy, John Panette. I'm not familiar with him. But we also have Mickey saying, going old school, she said Phyllis Diller. Phyllis Diller being a good one, as well as the late, great Joan Rivers. Just a couple of the others that are out there that no longer with us, but have lasted just even beyond their death to strike that funny bone. So I appreciate you sharing that. 217-629-7970. How did you learn how to drive in these conditions? It's not snowy out right now, obviously, but the snow's coming, right? How did you learn to drive in the snow? Of course, I had driver's ed in high school. We didn't have the treacherous road conditions when I was learning to drive because I'm born in May. So in order to get my license, I was driving in the fall and in the spring. We didn't really do much by way of winter driving. But I have an older brother, and he had I want to say like a 1980 Prelude or something back in the day when I was real young. And he piled me, one of my friends, and another brother into his small Honda Prelude. And after a huge snowstorm down in the suburbs of St. Louis, we went into a I was like 9 years old when this happened. All right. And I'm sitting in the back seat of this sports car, a 2-door sports car. And my brother, he's, at that time, he was probably 19, 20 years old. He's got young kids in his car. We're going into a hotel parking lot, and it was after a heavy snow. And you had, the mounds of snow that were being built up by the snow plows. And what he decided to do wasn't just to do, donuts and figure eights in the parking lot. No, he decided also to plow right through these huge mounds of snow, scaring the bejesus out of us. I mean, it was insanity what he was doing. But then again, as a young kid, I guess I got a feel for what it feels like to be inside a vehicle smashing through a snowdrift. So at least I got that experience. But how did you learn to drive in the snow? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Greg, I learned how to drive, first of all, when I was 12 on my uncle's farm.
Nice.
But then back in the 70s when we had that massive ice storm,
Yeah.
I drove from here to Thomasboro, just north of Champaign, in my mom's Duster, Plymouth Duster, during that ice storm. That's how I learned to drive in this mess.
Oh, man. And that's 10 and 2, and you are, I'm sure your heart rate's up the whole time. And gosh, it's exhausting, isn't it?
Yeah, because back then you didn't have the kind of tires for that kind of weather.
Sure.
Like now with all season. So I had to stay in the very middle of the road because the roads are crowned. So if you got off to the side a little bit,
that's right.
Slide right off into the ditch.
You start sliding. Right. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, and I tell you, even after all my experience driving in the snow, there's still those times where, if you're on an overpass and you're getting on the off ramp to get onto the highway, you really got to take your time. I saw a Facebook memory pop up on Friday, I believe it was, that back in like 2014 or 2015, I couldn't come into the radio station to do news because, I went off the road. I went off the road heading onto an on-ramp, right? And just slow. I was going like 20 miles an hour, but taking that corner, I just went right off the road. And I was in a front-wheel vehicle that was there's no way I was getting out. So I had to call Jim Leach at that time and be like, Jim, I ain't coming in. My car's in the ditch. So I at least got somebody to pick me up and take me back, and then we got the vehicle towed out later on in the day. But yeah, even with the training, you can still find yourself in some pretty treacherous conditions. How did you learn how to drive in the snow and ice? Good morning.
It seems like back then we had snow for like 4 months at a time, so you had plenty of time to practice in that type of environment. But, we would go to a parking lot or a large area, and you spend about 5 minutes just doing donuts and spinning out and seeing if you can get the car to slide. And then you kind of drive around and figure out, how the vehicle handles. That's why I think overall, women are safer drivers, but I think some men are better just because we've done enough stupid stuff behind the wheel. When something happens on the roadway, it's like, oh yeah, I've already created this mess before.
Right.
I know how to oversteer and get out of it.
Yeah. Do you think that, I don't know how you would characterize defensive driving courses? Is that how you would characterize? Do you think that should be taught to everybody?
Usually the environment kind of handles that,
right.
But now that we don't have it.
But yet the first snow of every year, it's like, nobody's driven in it ever, and they totally forget how to drive in it, right?
Yeah, and it's the same issue with people that, if you have a rear wheel drive vehicle, they freak out. It's like
right.
People's been driving in that weather for years with that type of setup. But I think if somebody wants to learn how to do it, it could be offered. But most of the time, it's not. If you're able to drive in that, your damage is caused from somebody that just slams into you.
That's no kidding, right? And one thing I find kind of funny is whenever there's a heavy snowstorm, a lot of the vehicles you see in the ditch are the Jeeps, are the trucks with big fat tires. For whatever reason, I think they get a little cocky And even four-wheel drive's not good on ice. 217-629-7970. How did you learn to drive in the snow and ice? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm 70 now, but I'll tell you, this was really a good thing that happened. As when I was younger, there was a lot of kids around in neighborhoods, and my dad and 3 or 4 of the other neighborhood dads, for kids that were like 15, 16, a lot of 17-year-olds then didn't necessarily have them, but what they did was brilliant. About 5 or 6 of the dads, and we did several sessions with this, they took us out to the fairgrounds. And as the other people have said, yeah, we did the spins, we did everything, but we also did the practical things. They intentionally got us stuck. And one guy had an automatic, and one guy had a stick, and one guy had a truck. Well, how do you get out of those? You roll them forward and back, or what do you do with the stick? And we had several sessions like that, probably over a couple of years. And it really paid off well because dads not only shared their skills, but we got to learn that stick is a huge deal. That's a dying art, man. And
it is,
it's easier with the stick. So
I miss my manual transmission. I love driving manual for whatever reason.
That's what I drive every day.
Yeah.
But it was really a good thing to do because it was well organized. We were out at the fairgrounds, and there was plenty of room to do any maneuvers you wanted to, or you can go into the spins or anything. So
well, and it's an area that's not populated. It's an area that allows for some corrective driving techniques. But as I shared at the top here, a listener sent me some photos of he and his daughter. Going a little off road in a remote area where there wasn't anybody, just to learn how to drive in the ice, right? And sure enough, they got into a minor fender bender, where their fender was the only one that was bent. So that's good. Nobody else injured. Nobody injured at all, but minor damage done. Lessons learned, I guess. Real quick. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning. That last caller just said it. Springfield is blessed to have the drivers' playground at the state fairground because that's where everybody goes to learn how to drive the snow. Your 17-year-old brother takes you out there to learn how to drive 3 on the
great.
tree.
Love it.
Or stick shift, all that. But I have to say, though, never drive a Firebird, or at least like a 1983 Firebird in the snow. Ever. Because it's so front end heavy that
funny.
it just slides all over the road.
Funny.
It was a nightmare.
Wow.
But, yes, driving the fairgrounds or a parking lot. And, hey, you know what? Those donuts are fun. I could do a donut today if it snows,
It's a good time. Right on. No, I appreciate that. Good stuff. So we'll probably have to revisit this conversation when we do get the first major snowfall where people could end up in ditches all over the place. It is the WMAY morning news feed. I'm Greg Bishop.